This is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers and people looking for whole life success. We talk to people from different genres, different niches, just people doing really interesting things in their space, find out a little bit about them and their journeys and what they're doing, and hopefully translate a lot of those into our own lives as well. So we've talked to lots of athletes, lots of CEOs, lots of entrepreneurs, just people again doing really interesting things. We've even talked to astronauts and scientists. So again, a real mix of people, and today I have one of those as well. Just before we jump into the interview, if you've been listening for a while, then you know that we have a connection with Thirdsy, and they create natural products to help athletes and high performers get better quality rest and recovery from physical and mental stress. They have a PM recovery collagen that's melatonin free, it's sedative free, and helps you get quality rest while supporting joint and muscle repair as well. So definitely take a look and see if it's something that you're interested in. If you go into our profile on Instagram, you can see there's a connection there. If you use BIBM20, you could save 20%, or just go directly to thirdsy.com and they can help you there as well. So really excited to have Lexie Bold with us today. She is a WNBF pro, personal trainer, fitness influencer, podcaster now too. And I think one of the really interesting things is that she's taken a bit of a bold step herself and moved to Mexico and has built a fitness and community kind of focused brand on related to transformation. And so we're going to talk to her because she's part of she's the CEO of Bold Fitness, so we'll find out a little bit about that. And she really does a lot of kind of coaching and mentoring and things like that as well. So really excited to have you with us today, Lexie. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Of course. It's nice to be on someone else's pod. I feel like
Yeah.
the last, year or two, it's always been me having a guest on. So thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm super excited to dive into it.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, that it is interesting. I know we're going to talk a little bit about your podcast and how that kind of came about, but maybe the first
Hmm.
thing, because a lot of people have probably followed you for a couple of different reasons. One, because obviously lots of fitness and wellness content that's there.
Hmm.
But recently, you did kind of that bold move yourself, where you
Hmm.
have moved to Mexico to Tulum to do kind of some of this stuff. Just tell me a little bit about where that kind of came from. What was it that started that journey for you a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am born and raised in a small town called Chestermere. It's actually a city now, but it's outside of Calgary, Alberta.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think for the most part, I just grew up in a very like small town. It's like the same people going to school together, the same. And about a year after high school, I think I got to a point where I realized I had like a lot of fear about doing anything different. And I realized this when I went to university because I was like, I'm leaving. Like, I don't have my parents. Like, I was very much like, I liked comfort. I liked the same. I pictured myself probably marrying someone that I went to high school with and having kids and, my kids going to the same school I went to. Like, I very much, that was what I visualized. And when I went to Mexico for the first time and I started traveling, that was really what just sparked my interest because I was like, wow, like there's a whole world out there. Like there's a whole world beyond what I know. And so that was kind of what got the ball rolling with, wanting to start my own business with how can I make money online? How can I turn my passion into an income? How can I have the freedom to not have to work for someone else? And eventually the end goal, which happened 8 months ago, was to live in Mexico and to move here. So it was funny because when I met my boyfriend, who I'm with right now, we actually met in Mexico. We were both on a trip. And the first thing we talked about that night was how we both wanted to live in Mexico. And he had a lot of businesses in Canada. I had a lot going on in Canada. And so we kind of spent like a year and a half, like, putting the pieces in play to make sure that we could do this jump and we could make sure that like we're not gonna lose anything if we leave, right? Because
Mhm.
that's always a fear with business is once things are doing well and like I never wanted to feel like I'm leaving that behind. So it was just a matter of getting things figured out. But honestly, moving to Mexico has been the best decision of our life. And it's incredible how many people are out here
Mhm.
that are exactly like us. Tons
Yeah.
of Canadians, tons of like French Canadians especially. And just like so many couples that I guess are kind of like us in regards to not having kids, entrepreneurs, people who work online. And it's just incredible, like being around the type of people out here. Everyone's looking to help each other. Everyone's looking, what business do you have? What venture? Who can I connect you with? Like it's so cool. So that's been one of the best parts of moving out here, besides the fact that we're not in minus 30 like you, Jamie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the sun is nice, the ocean is nice, but it's the people here that's been so incredible. And so, yeah, to answer your question, I think I just at a very young age I realized I needed to seek discomfort and I needed to kind of get out of that box,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so that was kind of, yeah, where I started and how I
yeah.
ended up here.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about because one of the is about community and kind of that connection because
Hmm.
there's two parts to that. One is community for yourselves, it sounds like, and being able to build a
Hmm.
business and do all of those things that it's always great to have those connections. But the other
Hmm.
side is your business is built on community too, and that's not necessarily community where
Hmm.
you are; it's community kind of everywhere. So,
Hmm.
how important is that for you to also have your business create that community and how have you found that are the best ways of kind of doing that for you? Like what is it that's been so successful for you that way?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to community, I'm in the fitness industry, and so a lot of my coaching is focused on, transforming from the inside out in regards to your food, your diet, your training. And so community to me is important because I think a lot of the time when people want to make a change and they want to kind of, maybe they want to work towards some fitness goals or they want to lose some weight or they want to stop partying so much and drinking. And it's like a lot of the time, a lot of people don't have that support and that community, right? Like the positive influence, like the community that wants to see you succeed, but the community that also wants to help you and support you along your journey because in my experience of helping women change their, eating habits and heal their relationship with food, it's tough to do when you're on your own. And a lot of the times you can't wait on the people around you to like want to change for you to change. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So I
yeah,
think in regards to like the struggle that comes with changing and that discomfort, it's nice to have be around other like-minded people who get it. They understand maybe what your past was like with struggling with your relationship with food, or maybe they struggle, they understand what it was like to really build their physique or lose a lot of freaking weight, right? And
yeah,
so when we're in this community of people, and women specifically for me, I
yeah,
coach mostly women. It's nice to be able to like have that positive influence on each other, but also have that like mutual connection of like we've all kind of been through a journey, even though it's different. A lot of the phases or seasons that you go through in your journey are similar. And
yeah,
so I got to a point after I'd been coaching for about 4 or 5 years where I realized I wanted to grow and expand. And so I hired other coaches to work with Bold Fitness. So there's more of us, right? Which is nice because obviously, as a coach, I never want the quality of service I'm giving my clients to decrease.
yeah,
And yeah, like it's a lot to try to keep up with, 70, 80, 90 clients. Like it's just when you
yeah,
want to keep everything like good quality, you want to be responsive, you want to make sure everything is very custom, you're in touch with your clients, you're helping them, you know what's going on with them. That's a lot if you have a lot of clients.
yeah,
So by being able to expand my business and hire other coaches that are like-minded women and bring them into my team, we're able to obviously help more women and just create that like common community, like I said, of come as you are. It doesn't matter if you're fit, if you're not, if you're, if this is new to you or if fitness is old to you and you've been in this world for a while. It's like we're all united by our love of one thing, and that's to be better,
yeah,
right? That really is
yeah.
what it is we're all excited to be 1% better, whether that's in a sport or that's just in your own relationship with food or really any part of your life.
Have you found, especially now that you are surrounded by people that are like-minded and that you have probably a lot of that whole idea of the people you surround yourself kind of lifts yourself up as
Mhm.
well. Have aside from what that does for your clients, have you found that personally that now that you're in kind of this whole different environment and maybe with different people that has been true for you, that the people you surround yourself has kind of leveled yourself up too?
Yeah, no, absolutely. To be honest, I feel like I am a small fish in a big pond here in Tulum,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah.
really a good feeling. Um, because yeah, like the people I have met here, I just listen. It's like, wow, you just listen. And I feel like, not to compare, but I would say back home in my small little world that I kind of grew up in, it's like
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I was very inspired by many people. I didn't feel like there was a lot of people around me that I was like, wow, like you are really doing things that I would like to do. And now being out here, it's just like everyone, like obviously a lot of the people here have left their lives behind or they've traveled a lot. So I think
Mhm.
when you've traveled a lot, you've experienced a lot. I just think it shapes you as a person because you have a bigger understanding of like the world, and just it's beautiful. And so being out here and being around people who really like, especially in business, a lot of health coaches out here, a lot of fitness coaches out here, obviously.
Yeah.
We always joke that like everyone's a fitness coach, basically.
Yeah.
But it's nice because it's cool to also hear how other people are doing things, right? Like in my business, everything has always been very one-on-one. I
Mhm.
work very closely with my clients from the second they apply to the second we get on the phone to the second they hire me. It's a one-on-one experience. And
Mhm.
so it's cool to hear what other coaches are doing out here to still have impact and still be able to help people transform physically and mentally, but just in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And Um, so building, something that's bigger than maybe what you had before, and figuring out
Mm-hmm.
ways to do that. Every entrepreneur has things that are stumbling blocks, and you have, I mean, your work is not entrepreneurship itself, but you have that
Mm-hmm.
work around it. Has there been something
Yeah.
that jumps out as, okay, this was really difficult and I didn't expect it? Is there something that right away was, the big learning for you when you have to do everything? I mean, when you're a smaller
Mm-hmm.
business, you have to do a lot and learn it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Jamie, I'm not gonna lie to you. I started my business when I was 19. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I would still say like I'm a bit of a shit show in business in regards to the back end.
Yeah.
I'm great with my clients. But my boyfriend has recently been helping with a lot because I never had that like business background. I was just kind of
Mm.
like, hey, I have this amazing idea. I would love to help women that felt just like I felt. I want to market on Facebook. I made a couple posts and boom, my business was born.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I think some of the things that I've had to overcome is number one, when you're young starting out in the industry, I think people, there's that fear that people don't take you seriously,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
There's the fear of like, okay, I'm 20, what do I know? Right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it's almost like beautiful though, because I feel like I was so naive that I was just like, oh, I'm a coach, I'm 20, who cares? It's like you don't really think about it.
Yeah.
Now that I'm 8 years into my career, I realize I'm like, wow, like those people trusted me and I was like brand new. And it all comes down to really believing in yourself, right? Like that confidence grows the more that we are able to actually like put what we know into action. So it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to actually be able to apply it. And once I got the experience of working with clients and seeing the results that they got based off what I was helping them with, that gave me all the more confidence to obviously keep growing. But it's funny you asked about kind of any struggles because recently I started hosting women's retreats in Tulum.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that was like, oh, it's been a while since I've done something like uncomfortable like that,
Hmm.
right? Because I've been coaching for 8 years. Like I know what I'm going to wake up to. I know how to handle situations. I know how to prep my athletes for stage and get them ready and make sure that they are going to be perfect when they get up there. But when it came to a retreat, I was like, wow, these women, I don't know. They're paying to come from all over the world.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's going to rain. I don't know if we're going to lose electricity. Like you're in the jungle. What if someone gets sick? What if someone gets food? Like, there's just
Yeah.
all like the things that could go wrong or whatever. And so that was like an unknown territory to host these women's retreats. But it was so beautiful because everything went the way it was meant to.
Hmm.
Everything went 10 times better than I could have ever expected. And I think it all ties back to what we were talking about with community. So just being able to be in a group in a community and, work out and do just spend that time together, open up, get to know each other with a bunch of strangers is such a
Hmm.
beautiful thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you can learn something, like people always have, well, different, everyone has like a different perspective to share, a different story, a different background. And we learn so much from being able to hear that, right? And
Hmm.
connect with them. So the women's retreats were beautiful. And I just, yeah, I winged it. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm hosting a retreat. And this is the price. This is our budget. This is what we're doing. And we just did it. And it was amazing. And now we can take from that and we can learn, we can grow, and we can improve. And that's something I love so much is I love that like chase of like trying something new, figuring it out, and then rolling with it, improving it, making it better, trying something new again, right? Like
Yeah.
I love that feeling. I hate feeling like I'm doing the same. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I always like to have that, yeah, just that like, what am I doing new? What am I doing to grow? What am I doing to get out of my comfort zone? Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
something I ask myself often. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when you're doing that, I mean, obviously, retreats can be very personal things for people and everything too, right? Because that is
Mhm.
truly, some people find that very transforming too when they go through an
Mhm.
intensive thing like that. Um, what's that like for you to know that, and maybe even see kind of inspiration from the people who you've worked with over the years, but also come to something like that where you've inspired them to maybe even do something that's that extra little leap too. How's that from an impact standpoint for you?
I would say that yeah, it's very impactful for sure. It's just nice to be able to like witness their transformation from the
Hmm.
second they arrive to the second they leave. Um, it's literally like it became like a sisterhood at the retreat. It was very much like the girls showed up, they're all nervous, they're all texting me, they don't know each other, and then by the end they're getting matching tattoos and they're crying and they
Yeah.
right. So when you go through a journey like that, I think it's so impactful for everyone in the experience. But the nice thing is, we never really know what's going to come from it. Like everyone had different takeaways from the experience of the retreat.
Hmm.
We had moms, we had, single girls who have never, or single women who have never had children. Like we had all different backgrounds. And I think being able to go through the experience together
Yeah.
and witness each other's was almost more touching than even what happened internally. But yeah, it was very impactful. It was very special, and I'm excited to see it grow. It's very different. I would say that my retreat is not, a lot of the retreats out here in Tulum are they're marketed as very spiritual. I don't know if
Hmm.
you're familiar, but
Yeah.
plant
Yeah.
medicine is huge out here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
My retreat is not like that at all.
Yeah.
I personally haven't done plant medicine, so I would never feel comfortable hosting a retreat and having that involved. But it's kind of like my retreat, I would say is like a very like it's like an entry level if you're curious. If
Hmm.
you're curious about meditation and yoga, you don't need to be a big yogi. You don't need to be, you can be anything. Come as you are, right? I really wanted every woman to feel comfortable coming to this retreat and not feel like they might not belong,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the beautiful thing about it is so many of the women that came had never really done yoga. They had never really meditated. So it was like seeing like the first baby steps for a lot of them,
Yeah.
which is amazing because when we pick up a lot of these habits and we go on a retreat and we get to spend a week actually like being still with our thoughts and journaling and looking inward and taking that time for ourselves, then we go home and we're like, wow, if I can keep some of these, little habits in my life,
Hmm.
it can really help me. And that was the goal with the retreat is to have the women leave, obviously having their own personal realizations and being able to just like take a lot of the habits home that we're building over that week together.
Yeah. Yeah. And how
Hmm.
about because you have, I mean, you're a good example, but you probably also have to do this with your clients as well, is that you've got a lot of things going. You've got business, you probably, well, you have your training component of that, but also your own personal wellness and social and all that kind of stuff too.
Hmm.
Um, how do you approach setting goals? Like, are you a write everything down kind of person? Are you just take it as it goes? How do you approach that yourself from a balance standpoint?
So honestly, I think that it depends on the goal. Like I like to be very realistic. So if I have a goal and I know it's going to take a lot of time, I will feel okay focusing on that goal while having other goals to focus on. But for example, when I compete, so when I prep,
Yeah.
I like to give 1,000% to my prep, and a prep can be anywhere from like 4 to 5 months typically, and that's when I'm like cutting body fat.
Hmm.
It's not like all the work you do before, but for example, when I've set a goal to compete 5 months from now and I'm starting my cut, I like to look at the timeline, but I very much like to dial in. I'm a very intense person. I will say no to going out. I will say no to doing things. I will go ghost mode. I will take more work off my plate. I will focus and make sure every day I'm really giving my all to that prep because I never want to feel like, oh, I should have done more or I could have done more. So in that aspect, I would say in regards to goals like that are very personal and dear to my heart, which competing, it's like, oh, my heart and soul. But with other business goals, for example, the goal to hit 600K, it's like, well, I know that's not going to happen in 3 months.
Yeah.
So how can I break this down to daily tasks, monthly tasks to make sure that I'm in line with that? And this is something I do with my team is at the beginning of each year, we set like a financial goal for the year, right? And that's based a little bit off how we've been doing, but a lot off what we want this year to look like and what we're going to do to put in the action to make sure that we can see that goal. There's a bug.
Yeah.
To make sure that we can reach that goal at the end of the year.
Mhm.
So yeah, does that answer the question?
It absolutely
Sometimes I
does.
feel like I just ramble.
No, it absolutely does. And it's interesting to see kind of how, yeah, if there's flex in certain areas, because you mentioned before, you have different seasons and there's different seasons even in
Mhm.
your business, different things that, you're doing at different times in focus. And it's interesting to see
Yeah,
how everyone approaches that. Um,
yeah.
how about you mentioned some stuff about role models there, but
Mhm.
from that perspective, have you do you look to a couple of people to say, okay, here's what I'm kind of modeling what I do after, or is it bits and pieces of what you take away from different individuals? What's that like for you?
You know what, Jamie, to be completely honest, I think it's important to be inspired by other people. I do. I think that having role models and having people to look up to is great, but to be like I would be lying if I told you that there was many people in my life that I look up to. I've always been very inspired by people in books. So
Hmm.
yes, I would say that certain people that I've read about in books
Yeah.
have inspired me. But to be honest, like I've never been super focused on like how someone else does something. I've always tried to just come from a place of like, how do I want to do this? And to be honest, maybe it hasn't always been the best way, but it's been my way and it's been authentic. And so
Yeah.
for me, I just, especially in business with my clients, with the way I coach, with the way I show up, I always want to show up in a very authentic way that feels good to me.
Hmm.
And so I just try to look at, okay, how if like it's almost like imagination. This sounds so silly, but it's like if I were to imagine my role model, that's who I'm trying to be like.
Hmm.
She's Lexie, but she's 15 years down the road. She's a millionaire. She's got this. She's doing this impact. She's showing up like this. She's confident. It's like that is what I'm visualizing. That is what I'm writing down. That is like what I'm working towards. And when I was 18, sorry, 19, maybe 20, I
Yeah.
did a year of meditation. And during that year, I had never meditated before.
Hmm.
Um, every morning I meditated for a year. And during that year, I would spend a lot of time visualizing like exactly where I wanted to get to in life, where I wanted to live, what I wanted my kitchen to look like, just everything, and even just the impact as well. Right. I think with manifestation, it wasn't just about like what I wanted the materialistic. Like it wasn't about
Hmm.
just the materialistic. It was like the impact. It was I want to be able to help so many women feel confident. I want to create so many bikini pros. I want to have a team. Like one of my biggest dreams, Jamie, is to have a pro team in the WNBF of bikini girls that are all the best fighting for first place every year, all my girls in top five.
Yeah.
This sounds so crazy. People are probably listening. They're like, yeah, okay. But seriously, that's like my next thing I'm working towards. So right now I'm
Yeah.
asking myself, okay, if I want to be the best coach in WNBF, if I want to be the coach girls come to because they're like, I want to win, I'm hiring her. Well, what can I do? Well, I need a posing academy. I need probably more help. I need to make sure everything is dialed in down to the way they do their makeup, to the suit, to the hair, to the way they smile. Like I need to treat these girls like they're pros before they're pros. I need to train them like they're the world champion even when they're not. Um, and so yeah, I've always like been able to kind of just get excited about what the future me would look like and what the future me wants to achieve. And of course, like I said, taking a lot from books too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you say that because I think of you've got a very specific kind of idea of what you want to do, but it is
Hmm.
built on systems. Like it's basically that
Hmm.
you do have to figure out all of the different components and build it out so it's repeatable and consistent. And that
Hmm.
doesn't matter what business you're in. It's a very programmatic way of being able to build a business, but from a vision that's obviously your own and different than other people's, but the
Yeah.
underlying stuff is very similar. So I would assume
Hmm.
there's lots of entrepreneurs that you're talking to that help uh, figure out how to do those different pieces either way,
Hmm.
some of that community you're talking about. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so, one of the things that I noticed you have a lot of focus on is in fitness. There's a lot of idea of how do I lose fat, and I'm going to focus completely on that. And you spend a lot of time flipping that a little bit about how do I build
Hmm.
strength in order to do that, obviously, but also that's the key component is strength training and building from that perspective. Um, is that fair to say? I guess first of all, because I'm just kind of going from kind of what I've read from some of your stuff in that philosophy. But how do you approach that with a lot of people that probably from a cultural standpoint automatically go to I just need to kind of lose
Yeah.
weight, you know?
Yeah. So here's the thing. There's what people want and there's what excites people. And
Mhm.
then there's what they need. And I like to say that I try to find this happy medium because if a client really wants to lose weight, like why am I going to try to sell them on the idea that they have to build muscle even though I know they have to build muscle? It's
Yeah,
like, okay, is there somewhere in the middle that we can meet?
yeah.
Jamie, you've been dieting for 6 months, you're really not feeling good, you're weak, I know you want to lose this last 5 pounds, but can we take a few months, can we eat a bit more, can we get you strong, and then can we cut that last 5 pounds? Do you
Hmm.
know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think in the fitness industry, unfortunately, like this is the reality. People want fast, they want quick, they just always want the fat loss, the smaller, especially for women. We want to be tighter,
Sure.
leaner. And I think the part that people miss is the fact that if you're able to be patient and do it the right way, your results are not only going to be 10 times better, but they're going to last, right? So when it comes to building muscle, if you can build muscle, you are going to be able to eat more. You are going to be able to get leaner easier,
Hmm.
and you're going to be stronger long term. And versus if we're always looking to lose weight, diet, get lean, it's like these are all like things that are kind of like taking away from us, to be honest. Whereas like if
Yeah.
we can build up, if we can build this beautiful house that's strong, then we can do more with it.
Yeah.
So I try to, I'll be honest, I usually will be okay with coaching people to lose fat to begin with. I'm not one of those coaches who, no matter
Sure.
who comes to me, I put them through 3 or 4 months of growing or what. Like I will work with them. If someone comes to me and they want to lose some weight, let's do that. But I usually do try to create some conversation around the big picture, and I try to talk long term, short term, because
Hmm.
a lot of the time, us women and maybe men too, we're in this short term mindset where we're just thinking about like what's going to happen 2 months from now. We just want to get abs for the wedding, or we just want to lose a bit of weight for summer. We're not thinking about like 3, 4 years from now. But if I can start to be that voice of reason in their mind, telling them, like, hey, I think we should increase your calories now. I think you need to trust the process. I think this is going to improve if we can just start pushing a little more calories.
Hmm.
And then they start to trust me. They go through the process, and it's like, wow, these are the people that have incredible transformations, right? Any of my most incredible transformations on my business page, if you look, I have tons.
Hmm.
The most incredible ones, the ones that you're like, wow, none of those happened in 3 or 4 months. And none of those happen in just a cut. A lot of those people built the muscle beforehand, before we even did the cut. They built that foundation, they got strong. You don't get to look strong without being strong. And this is something my younger self didn't understand. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be fit, but I didn't want to be fit. Do you
Mm.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was obsessed with the idea of, oh, I want to be the fit girl. But then it's like, okay, well, are you going to learn how to squat properly? Are you going to actually work hard? Are you going to break a sweat at the gym? And so that is really what it comes down to. Is there was a point in my life where I realized, ooh, I actually need to focus on my performance and getting strong and eating and letting my, if your body was a house, I always say like build the house. And that can take a lot of time for women, especially. It can take a lot of time, and I will never sugarcoat it. Even 3 or 4 months to me is so small to build muscle. Like that is
Yeah.
so small. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
that's kind of my thoughts on that.
it's great and very realistic too. I mean, I think that that's important to understand that it's a long-term thing that you're looking at, not something that's
Hmm.
just a short-term fix. So Um,
Hmm.
the one other part that goes with that, and we always ask everybody that comes on to for a couple of things, and they've already, I'm sure, got lots of kind of tips and kind of special things from today. But um, a lot of people are probably afraid to kind of take that first step, or do
Hmm.
something that is maybe out of their comfort zone, like doing a competition like you're talking about, but also it might be
Hmm.
going to a retreat. I mean, that can be scary for people to take the leap to do that and meet new people and all those things. Do you have any kind of tips as to, okay, here's a couple of things you could do to kind of open the door a little bit on something like that?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is I really, really believe that your intuition is never wrong. And if you have this feeling inside that you're being called to go to some girls' retreat that you've heard about, or if you're feeling called to get up on stage and compete or transform your body or run a marathon, listen to that. I think it's so special. And I think oftentimes we don't listen to our intuition. And this is what I've spent a lot of my life doing, is just very like intuitively knowing what I really, really want, what really fires me up, and then doing it. And so, yeah, I think the number one thing first would just be listen to your intuition. And the number two thing would be just working to overcome that fear, right? Whenever we want to make a change or try something new, like that fear is so normal, because a lot of us have learned this from such a young age, right? But I think stepping out of that fear and recognizing that, like, what is the worst thing that can happen? I always ask myself this, like with the retreat, I'm like, what is literally the worst thing that could happen, right? It's
Yeah,
not usually that bad, but oftentimes we convince ourselves that it's going to be harder than it is. We convince ourselves that more things are going to go wrong than will really go wrong.
mm,
So I think, yeah, that's important. And then number three would just be like being really intentional with visualizing your goals and visualizing things. I think visualization is so huge, especially because visualization should get you excited. You're not visualizing the right stuff if it doesn't get you pumped up. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about competing, like visualize yourself on stage, visualize how your physique is going to look, visualize it down to the core. What color is your bikini? What, you know what I mean? I keep talking about stage, but that's a huge part of obviously what I do.
sure.
But visualize it and get excited about it. It's
Yeah,
it's really hard to put one foot in front of the other if we're not excited about what's to come. And
yeah,
it's like we need to go back to being like a little child. We need to just go back to where before we had debt, bills, all this crap going on, and we actually let ourselves dream. And that is what I think visualization has done for me, is it's kept me young in my mind in regards to if something goes wrong, it's okay. If I
yeah,
lose the money, I'll make it back. If I place fifth, I'll place first next time, right?
yeah,
So yeah, that's kind of my little tips that I'll leave you
yeah.
with. Thank you so much for having
No,
me. This was wonderful.
no problem at all. And again, I'm sure that I'm sure people will want to follow you if they aren't already, and maybe take a look at your retreats and things coming up, and maybe some of your
Mhm.
programs. What are the best ways to do that, Lexi?
Yeah, so I have a business page on Instagram. It's at Bold Fitness Official, and that is where all of my business coaching transformation testimonials are. Please, I have tons of testimonials, and I always encourage people to read those prior to applying for coaching. I have a website for my retreats. It is called livingboldlyretreats.com. My last name is Bold, so my whole brand is Bold Fitness, Living Boldly.
Yeah, works well,
Um,
works well.
yeah. I didn't like having that last name when I was a little girl, and now I'm like, yeah, it literally was godsend perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, feel free to check out the website if you are interested in my retreats. My upcoming one is in March, March 9th to 16th, which is pretty soon, but we also have one in April as well, April 6th to the 13th. And then yeah, for any coaching inquiries, feel free to, you'll see all my links there on my page and you can apply for coaching or reach out. I love to connect with people. I love like doing stuff like this. I think it's so cool how through our computers and through social media, we're able to connect with other people's network and learn and just, I love it. So thank you for having me, Jamie.
Oh, no, no problem at all. And to everybody listening, if you didn't get any of that, we'll put it in the show notes. So just click through there and you'll be able to follow any of those links. Again, if you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast, do that right now. We have great people every week, just like Lexie. And we'll put the link in there too for your podcast. So if you're checking that, check
Mm,
that out too. And again, thanks for taking the time. We're gonna love seeing kind of what happens over the next little while with you. But I know things are busy down there, so really appreciate it. And
mhm.
good luck with all the warm weather you're having versus the really cold weather that we're having here right now. So
I'm gonna
again,
go to the beach right now,
yeah,
Jamie. I'll be thinking of you.
I'll probably go out and shovel snow. So it's a little bit different, but well, hopefully soon.
Mm,
But again, thanks very much for spending the time with us, Lexi. Really
of
appreciate it.
course.
All
Thank
right,
you for having me.
no problem. And everybody else, we will talk again soon on Big Idea, Big Moves.